Hello everyone, welcome to today's Salesforce training session. I'm glad to have you here as we continue building our expertise in Salesforce automation. In this session, our focus will be on after save flow triggers, a key feature that helps admins and developers streamline complex business processes without heavy coding. In today's session, we will begin with an overview of after save flows, looking at what they are, when they run, and why they are important for Salesforce automation. From there, we will compare after save flows, process builder, and before save flows, so you can clearly see the strengths, limitations, and best use cases for each tool. Once we understand the differences, we will dive into the actions supported in after save flows, covering everything from record updates and notifications to Apex calls. We will then explore the concept of scheduled paths, which allow you to delay certain actions, much like time-based workflows, but with far more flexibility. To make this practical, I'll walk you through real-world examples from our recruiting application, showing how these flows solve everyday business needs. After that, we will step back to discuss the limitations and pitfalls of after save flows, including areas where you need to be careful to avoid common mistakes. We will also touch on performance considerations and best practices to help you design flows that scale effectively in enterprise environments. Finally, we will wrap up with a preview of our next session on screen flows, where we will move from behind the scenes automation into creating interactive user experiences. After save flows are a type of record triggered flow that run after a record is committed to the Salesforce database. This means the record already exists in the system when the flow runs. Because of this, they are best suited for actions that depend on a saved record or involve record-related records. They are ideal for automations that update related objects like cross-object updates, send email alerts, charter posts, or custom notifications, create or update additional records as a result of the original change, invoke Apex actions when advanced logic is required. After save flows replace many legacy process builder and workflow rule use cases while being faster, more flexible, and easier to manage in a single place. Imagine a job application record moves to the status approved. At that point, an after save flow could automatically create an interview record linked to that application. Assign the first available interviewer from the pool, send a notification to the interviewer. All of this happens after the job application record is saved, ensuring the data is committed before further actions are triggered. After save flows let you build post-save automation in a single scalable tool, reducing the need for multiple workflow rules or process builders. Let us see the comparison and a traceability matrix between before save flow, after save flow, and process builder, taking various criteria into consideration. Let us start with timing. Before save flows run before the record is committed to database. After save flows and process builder run after the record is saved, which means they can work with committed data and related objects. Performance wise, before save flows are the fastest because they don't need DML for field updates. They work in memory. After save flows are efficient but consume DML and SOCL. Process builder is the slowest as every field update triggers its own DML, which can be a big problem in bulk operations. You can overcome this in after save flow by combining all updates into a single update. Before save flow is limited to updating fields on the same record and using get records in some scenarios. After save supports a wide range of actions like creating related records, sending notifications, invoking Apex, calling subflows, and scheduled paths. Process Builder also supports many of these, but it is less efficient and less flexible than Flow. Before save flows don't consume DML for updates, which is why they are so fast. After save does consume DML and SOCL for actions, but still in a bulkified way. Process Builder consumes far more because each update is its own DML. Since before save doesn't perform DML, it doesn't re-trigger other automation. After save flows can re-trigger flows, Process Builder, or Apex if they update records. So loop prevention is critical. Process Builder is a worst offender, often re-triggering itself and causing recursion. All flows are bulkified, meaning they handle multiple records in one transaction. Process Builder is bulkified in theory, but its inefficient design makes it much more prone to hitting governor limits in bulk operations. Flows give us a debug tool that makes testing and troubleshooting easier. Process Builder debugging is much more limited. Errors are often vague and harder to trace. Before save flows are simple to maintain, but their scope is narrow. After save flows are scalable and can consolidate multiple automation needs into one place. Process Builder quickly becomes messy with multiple process builders per object, leading to complexity. Before save flows can't do delayed actions. After save flows can using scheduled paths. Process builders also support time-based actions, but it is less flexible. before save flows and after save flows are the future. Salesforce has clearly announced the retirement of Process Builder, so anything built today should be in flow. The key takeaways as per Salesforce documentation is to use before save flows for fast same record updates, to use after save flow triggers for cross object updates, notifications, and scheduled logic, to treat Process Builder as a legacy tool and migrate away from it. Now let us see what actions and elements and what functionalities are supported by after save flow triggers. This slide shows you the various supported elements and actions with examples. After save flows give you full CRUD capabilities across objects, unlike before save flows, which only allow same record updates. For example, you can create an interview when job application is approved, update position field count when candidate is hired, delete duplicate interviews, fetch open job applications for a position using after save flow triggers. You can add decision making, variable assignments, and loops to handle bulk data effectively. For example, you can branch candidate status with hired versus rejected. You can assign the first available interviewer. You can loop through job applications to close them, filter only open applications, and sort interviews by date. These flows don't just manipulate data, they also integrate with Salesforce features like email, chatter, notifications, and even Apex for complex logic. For example, you can send email to HR when candidate is hired. You can post position closed to chatter. You can notify interviewer on a mobile app. You can submit offer for manager approval. You can call Apex to sync with HR system. You can reuse log automation history Subflow. Scheduled paths are a standout feature, letting you delay actions. Bulk handling ensures enterprise level scalability, and debugging tools make testing easier compared to older tools. For example, you can schedule a reminder email 24 hours before interview to the candidate. You can close 100 job application in a single update. You can debug candidate hired flow with simple record, capture errors when Apex fails and log them. Now let us see some examples of after save flow triggers. In the first example, when a job application is approved, an after save flow trigger is triggered to automatically assign an interviewer using a round robin Apex action, ensuring fair distribution of workload across available interviewers. The flow then creates an interview record linked to the application and sends an immediate notification to the chosen interviewer. In this example, we will see how to use the get records action, decision element, assignment element, create records element, and Apex action element. Let me log into my org. I'm in setup. In quick find, I'll enter flow. Click on new flow and select triggered flow, record triggered flow. In the start element, I'm going to select the object. I'll select job application. I want to execute this whenever a record is updated. Instead of writing an entry criteria here, I will create multiple decision boxes as needed so that I can use a single flow for configuring multiple criteria. Since I want to create an after save flow trigger, I'll select actions and related records, then click on the cross button. Then under run immediately section, I'll click on the plus button and I will select an action. I've already created an Apex action called as round robin pick interviews action. This action takes 3 different inputs: the pool key, the eligible interview IDs, which is an optional value, and how many interviewers it has to return, whether one or multiple, and it returns a message: the picked interview ID, interviewer ID, and picked user ID. Picked interviewer ID is the entire list of IDs, and picked user IDs. So it returns 2 list variables and 2 text variables and a message variable if something goes wrong. To give some background on this functionality, I have an interviewer object which has got an employee field which is lookup to user, and which also has something called pool key, typically indicates to which pool of employees this interviewer belongs. Let me show you some data that I have already pre-configured. So let me go to recruiting app. Here if you see I have interviewers. I have already set up 3 interviewers in my system. The first interviewer belongs to a pool key called EN-US, means English United States. Similarly, I created 3 interviewers who belong to the same pool key. And whenever I create an interview, I want to ensure that I associate one interviewer to that interviewer using a round robin mechanism. And this round robin functionality I have built using Apex. We will get into more details of Apex at a later point once we get into Apex sessions. For enabling this round robin functionality, I'm using one more custom object called round robin tracker. This tracker has only one record within it. So each time when I associate a particular interviewer, I will store the next interviewer's index so that next time when an interview is created, the next index is used accordingly. I'll be uploading this Apex code also as part of the in GitHub and sharing that in the YouTube description. But we will get into more details on how to write this code when we get into the Apex session. Now let me go back to the flow. So this round robin picker, so for that I need to enter the pool key, ENUS pool key. You can give eligible interview IDs here. You can include it. You can do a get records action and get the eligible interviewer IDs and then populate that value here. If the value is not provided, my invocable Apex action, it will go and pull all the interview records with this pool key and store that in this eligible interviewer IDs. So currently I'm not passing it because my Apex is already doing it. For how many, I'm giving a value of 1. The next thing that I will do is use a create records action and I'll create an interview record. So I want to do it manually. The object that I'm using here is interview. Round robin is returning me some output values. I can assign the output values manually. So I want the interviewer ID. So for that, I will create a new resource, which is of type text. I'll call it as interviewer. So this picked interview ID that my Apex is returning will be stored here. Similarly, I want to even copy the user ID. Let me create a new resource, variable picked user ID, which is of text. So the user ID will be stored in user ID. User ID is nothing but the employee from your interviewer, and interviewer ID is the interview record ID. So those two are returned from my Apex action. I'm collecting them into two different variables. Now within my create records action for interviewer, I will use the interviewer that is returned by my Apex action. I also want to link it to job applications. I will use the triggering record ID, so that this interview record will be associated to the job application. Then status, I will say scheduled. Then interview date time, I want to give it 7 days from today. So for that, I'm using a new resource, which is of type formula. I'll give the name, API name for this as interview date time. So data type is date time. So I'll say now, which returns the current date time, and I'm adding 7 days to it, clicking on that. Then interview name, triggering record, position, title. Triggering record, position, title. Before that, I want to give a text called interview for and click on save. For this flow, I want to give a name as job application after save flow trigger, click on save. Now if you see here, this flow will execute every time a record is updated. I want to execute only when the job application record is approved. So for that, I'm adding a decision box here. I'll call this as job application status changes when approved. Here I'll say triggering record value dot status if it is equal to approved. Now I want to pull these two actions into this. For that, I can click on the 3 dot, cut element, and click on the paste button. Same here, cut element, paste element. So whenever the job application status changes to approved, then the round robin Apex action will get me the next available interviewer from my interviewer pool and then create an interview record. After creating the interview record, I want to send a custom notification to the interviewer so that he is aware of the upcoming interview. I created a custom notification called interview alert, which works both in desktop and mobile. So I want to leverage this interview alert. Unfortunately, you cannot open this record and get the ID in the URL. The only option is you have to do a get records action and get the record ID from that. So for that, I'm going back to my flow and click on get records. I'll call this as get custom notification. The object name is custom notification type. And for the condition, I'm going to use label equals to the label that I have for this particular notification. And I want to get only the first record and get all fields. So since notification only has minimum fields, so automatically store all fields should also be fine. So I'll click on save. Now once I get the notification record, I can now send a custom notification. For that, you can use an action. So there is an action called custom notification, create send custom notification action, which is provided out of the box by Salesforce. So I'll say send a notification to interviewer. So for sending notification, there are certain required fields. that you need to configure. The first thing that I want to configure is the notification type ID. So I've already got the notification record. From that I can fetch the ID and populate it here. So I'll say get custom notification get records dot ID custom notification type ID. For custom notification body, new interview assigned for application, and I'm giving the name of the job application record. For notification title also I'm adding the same content. Recipient ID, this looks for a list of IDs. If you see here, I'm also returning a list of user IDs. So I'll create a new resource. I'll call it as picked user IDs. Data type is text. I'll say allow multiple values. Copy this variable and use that in my notification. It also needs a target ID, which will be my job application ID. So I'll say triggering job application record ID and click on close, save. So once this is done, I'll click on activate. Now let us test this functionality. So I'll create a job application record, and once I create a job application record, so the first thing that it does is it will actually pull the round robin picker. It will execute this Apex class, which will pull all the interviewer records. It will also look into the round robin tracker custom object and get the index from that, and from this list at that particular index whatever interviewer is available it will be returned, and using that interviewer I'll create an interview and I'll get the user from that interview record and send a custom notification to that interviewer. Let us see this in action now. So I'm going to job applications. I'll create a new job application by opening one existing one, and I'll say clone. Initially, I'll change the status to technical evaluation and click on save. So currently, since it is technical evaluation, my flow will not execute. So I'll click on save. Now I'll go here and change the status to approved. Click on save. So when I click on save, two things should happen. An interview record should be created and a notification event should be created. So let me click on save. Now, if you observe here in the related section, you will find an interview record is created, interview for senior director. And if you see the interviewer 001 is assigned to this. So let me create one more record. I'll just say clone, then I'll modify this to approved and click on save. So once I click on save, if you see there will be an interview record created. Now if you see the interviewer that is assigned is 0000, and if you observe there is also a notification that was sent a few seconds ago saying that new interview assigned for application for this particular user. So in the previous case I did not see the notification because it was assigned to interview 001, which is not me. When I log in as interviewer 001, he will see the notification. Let us do that. Setup users. So I'll click on login for recruiter 1. Now you see a notification for recruiter 1 which was sent 3 minutes ago for app 0023. So let me log out as this recruiter 1. If you go to job applications, all records. So when I go to 23, the interview record was assigned to INT 001, but for 24 the record was assigned to 000. If I go and create one more record, it should be assigned to 001 again. So let me see. I'll go to 24, clone it, save, then I will change the status to approved, save. So you see a related record, it is now assigned to 002. So since I have 3 interviewers in my org 000, 002 and 001, every time I create a new interview record, it will associate in a round robin fashion. And the magic happens because of this round robin tracker. So every time an interviewer is assigned, the last index is automatically updated. In the next example, whenever the candidate is hired or when the job application status is changed to hired, I want to update the associated position status to closed, and I want to close any other job applications which are associated to this particular position, and I want to post to Chatter announcing the details about the new hire, and I want to even call an Apex action to sync the data back to HR system. In this example, I'm going to demonstrate the get records assignment, update records, loop, filter, chatter, and Apex actions. Let me go to the org and open the flow that I have already created. Now in this case, I want to execute this part of the logic whenever the job application status changes to hired. So for that, I'm going to decision box, adding a new outcome. I'll say when hired. So here I'll say job application status is changed equal to true and job application status equals hired. So when these both conditions are met, that, I want to execute my logic. The first thing that I want to do here is to update the position status to closed. So from job application, I want to get the associated position and update the position's status to changed. So for that, I'm doing update records actions. So I'm saying update position status to closed. So here I want to update the related records related to job application record, and here I'll select triggering job application record position. I want to update the position record. That's why I'm selecting triggering job application position, and I want to update it only if the status is not closed. So if it is already closed, I don't want to do anything. So for that, I'm adding a condition. I'll say status is not equal to closed. If it is not equal to closed, then I want to update the status to closed. So this is the first action that I want to perform. Whenever this job application status is hired, I want to close the associated parent object position status to closed. The next thing that I want to do here as part of this flow is close other job applications which have the same position record. So for that, I need to get the position ID, and using the position ID, get all the job applications and close all the job applications. So for that, I'll go back to the flow. I will do an assignment. So I'll say assign position ID. I have to create a new resource and store that in that new resource. I'll call it as a variable position ID text equals triggering job application record dot position. Now once I have the position ID, I want to get all the job applications with this position ID. So I'll go here, I'll use get records, get all associated job applications. So I want to get job applications with the position ID equals to position ID, where status equals to does not equal to cancelled. And if you observe here, since we are getting a bunch of records, that's why Salesforce is giving a warning saying that this element can cause performance issues because there are a bunch of records here. Neglect this for now and close this. Now I got all my job applications. Now I have to change the status of all of these job applications to cancelled. So for that, I have to loop through these job applications. I'll use a loop, iterate job applications. So I want to use these job applications now, get all job applications, first item to last item. For each item, I want to change the status. For that, I'm creating a new variable. I'll call it as updated job applications, so which is of type record, and I want to allow multiple values. The object is job application. So here I'm going to update all these values in these updated job applications. Okay, I'll create one more variable here, assignment variable. I'll create a new resource of type job application, which is of record, which will allow single value of type job application. Now in this assignment, I'll say job application equals current item in the loop dot. Okay, I'm storing the current item into job application record, and I want to update this job application record status to closed. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm using assignment, and I'm assigning this first loop value to this job application. Then I'm doing second assignment where I'm taking this record, changing the status to cancel. Then I will add this job application to my list. So I'll say updated job applications dot add job application. 3 assignments I'm doing. One for assigning the iterator record, then changing the status, then adding it to the list. Finally, once I come out of this loop, I'll get all my job application records here, which I'm going to update towards the end. So after coming out of this, I'll call it as update records, and I want to update from the collection called job applications. So this will update all the job applications now. Click on save. For each record, I'm updating the status to cancelled, then doing an update records towards the end. So remember one thing, don't ever do an update records within a for loop, because you have limits on number of updates that you can do in a single synchronous transaction. You can only do 150 DML operations in a synchronous transaction. So if you put it in a loop, and if you end up having 200 records in Java application, you will hit that limit. That's why it is always a good practice to do the update operations outside the loop. Now, once I am changing or canceling the job application record, the next thing that I want to do is to send a notification to the candidate who applied for that position saying that this job application is cancelled or we have recruited some other person. So for that, you can add a new action. For each of this, you can create a send action. There is an action called email action using which you can send an email. So I'm not demonstrating that, but you can take that as an assignment. The next thing that I want to do here is I want to also post to Charter announcing the hire about this particular position. For that, I'm using an action. The action name here is post to Charter. So I want to post about a new hire. So message, I'm just saying a new hire was made for the position. So the position is available in record. So I'll say record dot position _ or dot title, and the candidate that was hired was record dot candidate _ or dot name. So I already have a group that I created called recruiting team. So I want to announce into this this recruiting team. Okay, I'll say group. Okay, so for target name, I have to give the charter group name and click on save. I want to also sync this to HR system. For this, I've already created an Apex action. I'll just call that Apex action. Sync offer details to HR system. But just sending the job application details here. Whenever a job application status changes to hire, the first thing that I do is update the associated position status to closed. Then I will also post to a charter group about this new hire. I'll also get all the associated applications for that position and change their status to cancelled. Then I'll also do synchronization to our HR system. So let me activate this and we can test this. So if you see the status field, currently all of these are approved, which means like interviews are currently going on. Assume that the application 17 is hired, or the applicant for application 17 is hired. In that case, I want to change these to cancel. I'll go here, I'll change this to hired, click on save. When I click on save, it has even cancelled this job application. Ensure that this is not cancelled. We can do it as a next step. But if you go back to the list view now, you should see all the senior director positions or applications are cancelled because the hiring has happened. But if you observed, even the 17 application was also set to cancel. It should be actually hired. So in order to prevent that, I'm going back to my flow. Since I'm updating all record, that's why it was doing it. So for that, after getting all associated job applications, here I'm saying position is this, status is this. I want to exclude my current application. So I'll say where record ID is not equal to current record ID, which is nothing but triggering record ID. So it will exclude this current job application record ID. That's one way of doing it. Or the second way of doing this is after getting all job applications, you can add a collection filter. So filter current job application. The source that I want to use is job application from get record, and here I can add a condition record ID is not equal to triggering record ID. So it will get all the job applications and it will filter the current job application, and I want to use this filtered job applications from filter current job application. So it will only take the one excluding the current job application record, and I'll click on save. So if you see here, once I've changed it to hired, any job applications with awesome sales rep as a position are cancelled except the one for which there is a higher record. And not only that, when I go to the position record, you'll see that the status will be closed. Then if I go to my recruitment charter group, you see that a new hire was made for position and the candidate that was hired was this particular candidate. In the previous demos, we have seen how to use immediate actions with after save flow triggers. After save flow triggers also support delayed actions with the help of scheduled paths. Scheduled paths let us delay certain actions in an after save flow so they execute at a later time instead of immediately after the record is saved. This gives us flexibility to better align automations with real-world business timelines. Unlike legacy time-based workflows, scheduled paths can be based on specific record changes or events, not just fixed intervals. They also allow multiple delayed actions in a single flow, making them more powerful and maintainable. For example, you can send interview reminder one day before the scheduled interview to a candidate. Or when a job application is approved, you can wait 2 days before creating an interview record and notify the recruiter accordingly. On the right side of the slide, I have given a visual representation where the green circles represent immediate actions and the blue circles represent delayed steps. For example, the first one is a scheduled path which is executed after a day. Second one is a path which is executed after 2 days of record change. By using scheduled paths, we can schedule reminders, follow-ups, and delayed actions without code, ensuring automations happen at the right time while keeping processes streamlined and efficient. In this next example, let us demonstrate scheduled path along with some other immediate actions. When an interview record is created and when it is having a future date time, I want to schedule an email reminder one day before the scheduled interview date so that the candidate never misses the interview. The interviewer, when sets the interview feedback to rejected, I want to change the job application status to cancelled. If it is selected, I want to change the job application status to hired, create an offer record and email HR and delete any pending interviews. If the feedback value is moved to next round, I want to change the job application status to in progress. In this example, I will demonstrate the schedule path, decision element, create record element, email, delete record element, and sort element. Let me go to my org. So for this demonstration, I have pre-configured certain things. Let me quickly share those. I've already created an HTML template called offer created notify HR. I also have an offer object in my org that has a bunch of fields. So it has lookup to position, candidate, and job application object. It also has the offer date as well as the start date, proposed start date, and the compensation details. Now let us go and create a new flow. Since I want to execute this whenever there is a change in interview record, I'll create a new flow. I'll go to flows. I'll create a new flow. I'm using record triggered flow. I'll select the object as interview, and whenever a record is created or updated, I'm not adding any conditions here. I want to do all actions. That's why I'll go with actions and related records, because in this example, I want to update parent record. I want to perform an email action. All of these can only be done in after save flow trigger. I want to even schedule an email reminder, which can also be done only in after save flow trigger. And here you see there is an option called add scheduled path. I'll click on add scheduled path, and you can add multiple scheduled paths. I want to send an email reminder 1 day before the interview date. So that's why I'm going back to flow builder. I'll say 1 day before is the label for the path. The time source is interview date time. Offset number is 1 days before, and you can also give a batch size. So if you don't specify the batch size, the default batch size will be 200. So I'll go with the default batch size. But if you want to execute it, if you are running into governor limit errors, you can go and adjust this batch size accordingly. Now once you do this, if you observe, you will see two paths, one for run immediately, one for 1 day after. So let me first complete the email reminder part. So I'll click plus. I'll say send email alert. I'll use reminder email notification, send email reminder about upcoming interview. The record ID is job application or interview record ID, which is triggering record ID dot record ID. So I'm using an email template and sending an email using that template. Currently I'm using a dummy template for this. Before 1 day of interview, this will actually execute and it will send an email reminder. The next action that I have is when interview feedback is rejected, selected, or moved to next round. So it is based on the interview feedback. So for that, I'm going and adding a decision. I'll call it as feedback changes when selected, and I want to add when rejected and default outcome. So here I'll say interview triggering record dot feedback equals selected, and triggering record feedback is changed equal to true. So whenever it is changed and changed to selected, I want to execute this path. Similarly, triggering record interview feedback is changed equal to true, and triggering record interview feedback equals to rejected. When it is rejected, I want to execute the second outcome. So when it is selected, I want to change the job application status to hired. I want to create an offer record, and I want to send an email to HR, and I want to delete any pending interviews for this candidate. In the flow builder, when it is selected, the first thing that I want to do is change job application status to hired. So I'll say update related records. I'll say update JA status to hired. Use the records related to interview. Here I'll say triggering record dot job application, and I want to update the status to hire. The second thing that I want to do here is create offer record. So for that I'll use create records action. I'll do manually. So the record that I want to create is offer. So I can give the job application as interview job application, candidate as triggering record job application candidate, then position as triggering record job application position, then status wrap offer date today. Okay, so for offer date you need to create a new formula, call it as today. I'm using the today function. Start dates is today plus 7. Today plus 7, or else you can create one more formula as today plus 7. Variable after 7 days date. Okay, formula today plus 7. 7 days after today is when I want him to start. Compensation package, I'll give it as 120,000. Usually we can put this compensation value or derive this value from the job application record and populate it here. Assume that job application has the compensation value. You can populate it from the job application record. Then additional benefits. So I'll say medical, 401k. So like this I create an offer record. I want to send an email to HR. So for that I will use send email action. I'll select action, send email. I'll select send email. I'll say send email to HR. Use email template. I can use the template here that I already created. Offer created template. recipient will be HR, which is on job application record. So I'll say triggering record value recruiter or application recruiter. So I'm sending email to HR. The next thing that I want to do is I want to delete any pending interviews on the same job application. So I'll use get records, get associated interviews, interview where record where job application ID, where job application is equal to triggering interview dot job application. It will get all the interviews associated to this job application. Okay, I'm getting all the interviews associated to this job application except the current one, and whose status is not equal to completed. Now I want to delete all these records. So I'm saying delete interviews. So I can use get records from interviews and delete those records. So whenever the job feedback is selected, so I'm updating the job application status to hired. I'm creating an offer record, sending an email to HR about the offer, and I'm deleting the interviews associated to this job application to which this current interview is associated to. If it is rejected, I want to change the job application status to cancelled. They update related records, update JA status to cancelled. So I'm saying status to cancelled. And if it is moved to next round, I want to change the job application status to in progress. Update JA status to in progress. So whenever the feedback changes, when it is selected, I'm doing a bunch of actions like updating the job application status to hired, creating an offer record, sending an email to HR about the offer, and deleting the interviews associated to the application. And when the feedback changes to rejected, I'm updating status to cancelled. If it is changed to move to next round, I'm changing it to in progress. So if you observed, I was able to build a lot of functionality without activate this. Now let us see how this works. So I'm going to recruiting app. Let me go to job applications, select one of the job application. This is currently cancelled. Let me make it as in progress. So I'll go to the interview record and I'll change the interview feedback to move to next round. When I say to move to next round, since interview is updated, so the after save flow trigger will execute. The first thing that it will do is it will create an email reminder one day before the event. And then it will check the feedback change since I updated it. So the job application status is updated accordingly. So if you go here and see the job application record, it is updated to in progress because I said move to next round. Let me go to setup. Or if you go to the monitoring section and go to time-based workflows and select the object as interview, their interview for senior director workflow flow, it is scheduled to execute on 8/27 at 2:37 p.m. So if you observe, for all the new records, the new interview records that are created are updated to match the criteria. Salesforce is going to create a scheduled action whenever a record is created or updated to meet the criteria. So it is going to execute this scheduled path and schedule one day before the interview date time. If you want to see your scheduled paths, monitor them, you can go to monitoring section, time-based automations, and then you can check that particular thing being scheduled here. And the second action that happens here, so when I go and modify the interview record, so let me go to recruiting application or the same interview record. So I'm changing the interview feedback to say selected. When I change it to selected, let us see what happens. When I change it to selected, the first thing that happens is it will update the job application record, associated job application record to hired. That's one thing that happens. Since it is hired, so any job applications with this particular position, senior director, if there are any open ones, they will also be cancelled because this position is closed now. And it will also create a offer record under the job application record. If you see, the offer record is created with all the offer information because that is what I am doing in my flow. In my flow, I'm creating an offer record. It will also send an email to HR. Currently the HR has a dummy email ID, that's why I'm not able to show that email, but email will be triggered. Then it will delete any interviews that are scheduled, that are not cancelled. So if you go back to the job application, this job application, if you remember, had 2 interviews. Now it will only have 1 interview because the other interview is deleted. Now that we have seen an example of a scheduled path, let us talk about the flow limitations. I've divided this into three different sections like general limits, transaction limits, and usage-based entitlement limits. Just like Apex, flows must respect Salesforce governor limits to ensure system resources are fairly shared in a multi-tenant environment. If a flow exceeds these limits, for example, too many DML operations or too many soccer queries, the entire transaction is rolled back. Even if you have defined a fault connector, the rollback still happens. This ensures performance stability across all Salesforce customers. Each flow runs within a single Salesforce transaction. The same per transaction governor limits that apply to Apex also applies to flow. This means things like the number of queries, DML statements, or CPU time are strictly capped. If your flow exceeds any of these, the whole transaction fails to protect system health. Some flow features are tied to usage-based entitlements similar to future licenses. These don't restrict what your org can do, but they simply expand your capacity. If your usage exceeds the allowance, Salesforce will contact you to discuss contract adjustments. Importantly, your flow interviews continue running as usual during this period. Flows are powerful but share the same limits frameworks as Apex, always designed with bulkification, efficient queries, and minimal elements in mind. Keep in mind that exceeding limits rolls back the transaction, so testing with bulk data is essential before deploying to production. Let us now discuss some flow considerations. Always define clear entry criteria so your flow only runs when it really needs to. In our examples, you may have noticed that we didn't put conditions in the entry criteria itself. Instead, we started the flow and immediately used a decision element before any logic. This ensures that the flow runs only when required, but still gives us the flexibility to add multiple branches of logic in a single flow. If you leave criteria blank or don't add required decision elements, the flow fires on every update, which wastes system resources. A best practice is to compare the record and record prior, or to use each changed condition to make sure the flow only runs when a specific field value actually changes. Use the right trigger type. Before save flows are lightning fast and perfect for same record field updates since they avoid DML altogether. After save flows are better when you need to work with related records, parent or child records, or perform any actions. Picking the right type keeps your automation efficient. Loops are very powerful, but they can get you into governor limit trouble if you are not careful. Don't put DML, get records, email actions inside loops. Instead, collect records into a list and update them all at once. This is exactly what we did in our example when we closed multiple job applications after a candidate was hired. When you use get records, never pull all fields unless absolutely necessary or you are sure that the object is not that complex. Only query the fields you need and add filters to narrow the results. This not only speeds up execution but also reduces the chances of hitting query limits. Avoid blind updates. If nothing has changed, don't write to database. Add decision elements to check conditions before updating. This prevents unnecessary recursion and reduces the risk of governor limits. For example, we check the feedback status before creating follow-up tasks or offers. Flow formulas are not cached. Every time you reference the same formula, it gets recalculated from scratch. If you have an expensive formula, like one with regular expression or heavy logic, consider moving it to Apex. Apex formula results are cached in memory for the transaction. Don't forget fault paths whenever you send an email, call Apex, or update records. Fault paths let you capture errors into a logging object or send an alert to admins. This makes troubleshooting much easier and keeps your users from being surprised silent failures. We will update our current flows in our next session with fault paths. We have already covered a lot in this session, and since our presentation is running close to 45 minutes, we will continue the topic of performance considerations in our next session. Along with this, we will explore the flow debugger to understand execution step by step and dive into the master subflow design pattern, which is especially useful when updating parent or child records based on multiple criteria. These topics will give us a complete picture of how to build flows that are not only powerful but also scalable, efficient, and easy to maintain. Before we wrap up, I would like to remind you how you can continue learning and get the most out of this Salesforce training path. If you have found this session valuable, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new lesson. It is a simple way to stay updated and also helps us reach more learners like you. And for those who want to take their learning further, visit trailblazertutor.com. There you will find the complete Salesforce learning path with step-by-step demos, detailed assignments, and plenty of hands-on exercises to help you apply what you have learned in real-world scenarios. Your engagement, whether it is a like, a share, or a subscription, motivate me to keep producing high-quality, practical Salesforce content for you. So thank you in advance for being part of this learning journey.